Hey guys, welcome to Executive Espresso. We're here every Friday, 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. That is U.S. Memphis, Tennessee time. And I need to share with you, I have a bias. It's a really big bias, and not everybody agrees, but I think that our guest today agrees, and that is you cannot build a healthy country. You cannot build a healthy nation without healthy families. And there's a lot of moving parts to that. We're going to talk today about fixing picky eaters, how to talk, how to fix those focus problems. And so, really, parenting is about some big basic values, but some very nitty gritty techniques. And again, welcome to Executive Espresso. 18 minutes, your dose weekly of caffeinated insights at the intersection of business, because today we're talking about the business of parenting for busy parents. And today we have one half of this dynamic duo of raising healthy families. They are a mom, dad, child specialist team. They help parents resolve ADHD symptoms, picky eating struggles, without medication, stress, shame. And their tagline, kids are worth it. Jeff is here with me today. Jeff, I thank you so much for being on the show, taking time out of your really, really busy family schedule. And I welcome all of you listeners and viewers here today. We're live streaming through Facebook. We're live streaming through LinkedIn, YouTube, Into the Mindset Masterclass. You guys join us over at school.com/mindset. That's SKOOL /mindset. And today we have Jeff Thriving _kids on X, where we're also live streaming, and we encourage you guys to take part in the conversation. Barbara, thank you so much for reposting the stream. All your other folks reposted, but Jeff, how did you get into this actual niche of just focusing on healthy families?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. Appreciate the opportunity to have a conversation and spread the word about just being a little more intentional with our parenting. But my background is in physical therapy and chiropractic, and I ended up really building a patient base with a lot of youth, teens, young kids, that sort of thing. And my wife, her background is in kids' mental health. And the more we would kind of chat to each other about our patients and stubborn cases, we just saw a lot of overlap. Her kiddos that were struggling with some mental health stuff would also have say nutritional disorders, or they would be stuck to a screen or not getting enough exercise, these sorts of things. And conversely, if I had a patient I was working with and they were struggling with a certain thing, there was often sort of a mental health component. So we just started kind of collaborating on these cases, and we noticed we were getting some pretty good results when we would look at the child as a whole rather than just this kind of one individual problem that they were facing. And then when COVID came around and we were doing less in-person stuff, I had no experience with social media or anything, so we kind of started getting into the online space and just posting about our experiences and trying to provide some tips and some actionable things parents could take to help with parenting and overcome some of these common challenges. And it really took off. People were hitting us up with a lot of questions, asking if we could help with this, that, or the other. And we really started enjoying it. We started really helping families overcome what are challenges that are becoming more and more common in today's busy society. And that it's like you mentioned, it's picky eating, it's all these ADHD symptoms, it's too much screen time, it's these things that we've come to view as normal, but they're really the root cause of a lot of the problems we're seeing with our kids these days.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I see a lot of this, and I think it's hard for people of my, even your age group, certainly my age group, to understand the impact of social media because we're just not on it. I'm glad to hear that I'm not the only one. I only got on X in earnest about 2 years ago. It was almost like an electronic jungle. And I don't think that parents understand to a deep enough level the downside of social media. There's an upside, but there's a big downside. I think social media has become the new cheap babysitter. And so the other thing is that, and I'd like to get your take on this. I think that our experience trains our brain. Our experience trains our brain. So if you're teaching your brain to only focus for 60 seconds or 90 seconds or 8 minutes, then your brain's going to get really good at just focusing for that amount of time. And so, getting your kids off of social media, focusing on some longer intervals, is going to train their brain for some of the most important things in life. But what problems do you see with kids being on social media where parents might intervene, and what might be a sensible way for them to do that without having an all-out war with their kids? What do you think?
Well, there's sort of two ways to approach it based on, the phase you're in, right? If your children are young and not quite at the social media age, you want to approach this intentionally and, think about what you want this look like as your kids enter this world, right? It's setting appropriate boundaries to lead you to that sort of ideal scenario, right? Maybe it's 1 hour a day, maybe it's only in common spaces where you go on and check your messages at the computer that's in the family room rather than being alone in your room, right? And it's really just figuring out what your child can handle. It's not like there's this age is perfect for kids to start, because every child's different. Every child's at a different maturity level. Boys are different than girls, all these sorts of things, right? So it's really sort of, making a judgment call as a parent, and it's better to start with less and to, increase if, that need be, versus give them too much or just, let it go wide open. Like you said, it's an all out war to go from 6 hours a day trying to get them back down to a reasonable balance, right? When we see families who are at that stage, let's just say it's got a little out of hand and the children are spending a little bit too much time on social media and the parents are starting to notice it, it all starts with communication. Like you said, if you're going to just say, no, we're going to take that away from you, you don't get it, you're in for an all out war, right? Kids, you're going to head down the path of a power struggle. Kids want to have a sense of control over their life, whether it's, the food they put in their mouths or how they get to spend their time. So it's communicating with our children, and it's including them in this decision. Hey, listen, we've gotten to a point where this is not healthy, the amount of screen time we're spending, or time we're spending on a screen. We're going to work towards reducing this, and this is what it's going to look like. Maybe it's half hour less a week for the next couple of weeks, and we might increase that. And to replace this time, because a lot of parents will make that mistake, they just remove the screen time, and now there's this big void in their kids' lives, right? They've been spending so much time on there. So we need to fill that back up with something. We need to give children things to do off screen. And a lot of times that's showing by example, right? Hey, I'm also going to be reducing my screen time because I've noticed it's gotten a little unhealthy. And we're going to, head to the park. We're going to play catch. We're going to, pick up a musical instrument together. We're going to do an arts and crafts together. We're going to take up baking bread, whatever it might be, right? But we want to give kids something. Like you said, we need to train our brain to get off those 30-second intervals. So can we do something offline that is going to kind of restore normal childhood, restore, embracing being in the present moment and taking time to, learn something that doesn't happen in 30 seconds or 8 minutes or whatever that time interval is, right?
The SpongeBob zone. I think a
Exactly.
SpongeBob episode. We kind of train our brains for intervals of attention. The question for you adults is, what interval of attention are you training your brain for? Because your brain, again, is going to get better and better and better at it. And don't be a hypocrite for your kids. If you tell your kids, look, you need to get off of this whatever app. Well, what apps are you getting off of? Are you playing Candy Crush all day long? Or are you sitting there with the magical, joystick in your hand called a remote control? So yeah, don't be a hypocrite for your kids. Guys, if you have questions for Jeff, I'm sure he would love to answer them. Hop on there, just put it up in the chat. I'll pull it on screen. And we only have a few, about 8 more minutes to go or something like that. And so I want to maximize this. So Jeff, if you take a couple of minutes, and what do you think these? Now I'm talking about symptoms, not a diagnosis. So just because you have symptoms or your kids have symptoms doesn't mean you have a diagnosis. You just have symptoms. So I found it very interesting about your thoughts on ADHD symptoms and using food, habits, some home based mindset shifts. So share with us in a couple of minutes, your foundational beliefs and teachings on that, if you would.
Sure, and that's an important distinction. We're not talking about any specific diagnosis, but the reason why we're seeing such a sharp increase in things like ADHD diagnosis is because it's a symptom-based diagnosis. If a child is, constantly hyperactive or having difficulty focusing, they might, get that label and go down that path, right? But we're seeing so many lifestyle factors that are also leading to the symptoms of, behavior issues, hyperactivity, things like that. And what we just talked about, excess screen time, it's symptom or ingredients in their food, like the chemical food dyes. Lack of sleep has also been linked to a lot of these ADHD symptoms, right? So we like to take the approach that we always want to fix lifestyle before potentially going the route of meds. And a story we see all the time is child gets woken up to go to school. Maybe he's not getting enough sleep because he has to get up early, and we feed him a breakfast of sugary cereal and juice, and we might put him in front of a screen while mom and dad get ready to go to work. Then we rush him out the door and drop him off at school. And now we're expecting this child to have to sit down and pay attention, and it shouldn't be any surprise when he struggles to do so, right? And now the system is designed to, little Johnny's having trouble sitting still, he can't focus, send him to the doctor and let's get some testing done, right? Versus, if we can take a step back and say, okay, well, what might be going on? Let's put ourselves in the child's shoes, right? Well, we're overstimulating him with screens and these, chemical ingredients in the food, and he might not be getting enough sleep. So can we, get to bed a little bit earlier to make sure he slept? Can we improve the diet a little bit? Can we reduce the screen time? And, quite often we're seeing either significant improvements or resolutions in these symptoms because the root cause wasn't any sort of way that the child's brain might be functioning. It's that this young developing brain just can't handle the onslaught and overstimulation of the screens and the sugar and stuff like that.
I love that. So very well put. Just a little bit of the cognitive neuroscience series. Uh, the concept of cognitive load. If I were to say to you guys, I'd like for you to try to remember the letters in order of the letters I'm about to speak to you: ARABRAB. Well, that's 7 letters. How many of you got it? Well, your performance started to taper off after letter number 5, and you can only hold about 7 letters in your mental buffer. So your brain is really doing a juggling act. Now, you adults, you've had decades of practice at what is called working memory, being able to hold things in the buffer, flip it, use it in certain ways, but your kids haven't. So that's a trainable skill, and you get better and better at it, hopefully. So, like Jeff said, if you're throwing these ping pong balls of data, experiences, flashing lights, and information, your kids only have a certain buffer zone. They only have a certain size catcher's mitt that they could catch those things. And so performance goes downhill. You have to start low and go slow, whether you're training golfing, bowling, typing. I remember learning to type. I guess it's called keyboarding now. One of my favorite classes is typing. But I started slow and I learned ASDFJKL semicolon. And so well, I can't get all my hands on screen. And so you're learning slow so that you could do things quickly. If you're throwing things at your kids quickly, the learning goes out the window. And that's not a diagnosis. That is a process. That is a mechanism that can be changed. And so I would expect, Jeff, that you get a bit of pushback on this from parents sometimes that just want to, say, oh, no, no, it's a diagnosis. It's a diagnosis and they're born with it. There's nothing we can do. How do you lead parents gently into understanding the big benefits of small lifestyle changes, the big benefits of small lifestyle changes, and what are some of those? Just to kind of quickly review some of those. Just if you make these small lifestyle changes, folks, your family's going to be calmer. and your kids are going to be brighter. What do you think, Jeff?
Yeah, that's always a tricky thing. And, the world of parenting can be quite judgmental. So it's definitely something you want to approach, carefully. We all have the best intentions for our kids, but, when we start looking at, the foods I'm feeding my kids, or, me allowing them to go on a screen, that might be harming them, that can be tough for many parents to kind of take in. And, we've been there ourselves too. We're parents, we've, played around with different foods. We've relied on screens, sometimes. And so we speak from experience as well. And I think, parents need to be ready to learn, whether you're trying to lose weight or you're trying to alter your parenting. You got to be in a position where you want to make change, where you're open to this, because, especially in our private practices, we get people who come and they're diagnosis shopping, and those people aren't going to be receptive at this stage to what we have to say. But you'll get parents who've gone that route and they see that the medications aren't working for their kids, or they might be making them lethargic or something. So they are more open to these things. And yeah, it's not going to be conquered overnight. There's, just like our health, there's no finish line with our health, but you'll see kids are so resilient, and kids' bodies are just designed to thrive when you can get parents to just commit. And a lot of when we work with parents, we just say, we got you for 90 days, just buy into the system for 90 days. And as we start to make little changes, let's reduce that screen time a little bit. Let's get kids outside. Kids thrive when they're outside, right? Let's, I'm going to put my screen down. Like you said, I'm going to be intentional. We're going to spend time together and actually connect, right? You start doing these little things, it's really noticeable really quickly. And as the kids start, they're happier, they're more interactive, they're just, loving life, and all these symptoms start to kind of quiet down a little. Parents quickly buy in usually. They'll see, oh wow, my child never ate that before, and now they're wanting to eat it. My child never seemed to want to play sports, but now that we're not doing screens or we're getting outside and playing catch, they seem to be really loving it, right? And it just, snowballs. That momentum builds quite quickly. So then the buy-in isn't really an issue. The parents seem quite bought in. And often parents, what can I do next, and what can I do next? And they're now kind of get hooked on that.
And the kids can too. For you parents listening, you can apply the same thing with your kids as Jeff is applying with the parents. Give your kids some early quick wins. Early quick wins. Unless your kids have a reason to do this, they're just not going to be on board with doing it. I wanted to teach my son chess. I'm not very good at chess. I love to play. I'm just not very good at it. But I do have a really nice chess table. But I gave him some early quick wins. I didn't just skunk him until he mastered it. I gave him some early quick wins, and now, of course, he's skunking me. The shoes, proverbial shoes on the other chess piece or whatever. And so, give your kids some early wins. The other thing I wanted to point out that Jeff said is the overnight expectation. Attention is not one thing. Attention is a culmination of a lot of things: diet, exercise, collaboration with your kids on developing a skill we call attention. Attention is kind of like chess, it really is. You have to collaborate on it. It is a teaching training thing, how to acquire attentional skills. Part of that is a consistent bedtime, a consistent interval of sleep, a consistent wake up time, consistent meal times. You see where I'm getting here? The brain pays attention to consistency, and it reacts adversely to the absence of consistency. Why? Because in the brain, absence of consistency may mean a threat. Absence of consistency may mean danger. And if your kids are living in an environment lacking consistency, then they are surviving in a brain that is always looking out for, oh, is that a threat? Is this the threat? Every inconsistency the brain registers as a threat. The kid is in a low level of fight or flight, and in fight or flight, attentional skills take a deep nosedive. I'll go back to cognitive load. How many of you remember those letters? A, R, A, B, R, A, B. That's seven bytes of information. And the more your kids are able to practice attentional skills based on consistency of schedule, as long as you're not letting inconsistency of your schedule get in the way of attentional development, your kids will develop attentionally. But one last thing, expecting that to happen overnight is like saying, hey, I got to go to the beach tomorrow in my bikini. I know that's a shocking thought, imagining Jeff and I in our twin polka dot bikinis. But if you would imagine that. And we've got to lose 50 pounds by tomorrow. Easy peasy, right? So, parents, please, attentional development, as Jeff points out, is a really slow process. A really slow process. So, don't get in a hurry. When you get in a hurry for your kids developing attention, it gets in the way of them developing attention. Guys, we're kind of waxing long today. I'd like to have this for about 18 minutes. So, before we go to our final section here, let me ask Jeff. Jeff, where do you do most of your work, and where can people find most of your information?
Honestly, the best places on X, like you said, thriving double_kids. We're on there most days. We answer all questions, and yeah, reach out there.
Oh, let me point that. Now, it's not just one underscore, it's two.
Double_, yeah.
I got that wrong. I got it wrong. So, you guys, when you're typing it in, double that underscore, and you can remember that because it is he and his wife who function as a team. That's
I like that.
the two underscores there. Just a little mnemonic for you guys today. But let's kind of leave the folks listening, the folks observing, with some type of powerful affirmation or tip that they can take into the weekend and get started right away. What do you think?
Yeah, we're all about it's intentional parenting, right? So, for us, for parents we work with, I always recommend one of the best things you can do is, you know, take care of your own screen habits. When you put that screen away, magic just happens at home. And we don't realize how much time we're glued to our phone, how much time, family time is spent with the TV on in the background. It just become a buffer between the family, right? And when you put that phone away, when you start, intentionally planning it out, where at 6 o'clock I'm putting my phone in a drawer and we're just going to hang out as a family, that's where, again, the magic happens, right? You start actually connecting with your kids. You start, laughing and playing and figuring out, fun little ways to pass the time. It really becomes a lot more quality family time, and you can feel that strong bond, and you really get to know your kids how you should be knowing them.
Raising my son, I'm kind of taken back into some memories about what kind of memories as a parent do you want to create? What kind of memories do you want your children telling your grandchildren? Well, I have fond memories of us sitting in the same room together, fiddling on our cell phones. It's really all we ever did.
Yeah.
We were literally together alone. So, what kind of memories are you going to build? And build those with your kids. I don't think there's anything wrong with being on social media. I'm on social media. This is streaming through social media. But I don't see enough parents that do it with their kids so that they demonstrate these three key things I'm going to leave you guys with. Kids should be taught how to start a thing. They should be taught how to maintain that thing as long as it should be maintained. And then they should be taught how to stop when it's time to stop. So if you're on social media together, have a start time, a duration, and a stop time, because that is training attentional skills, and that is based in what? Well, that's based in meaning. Teach your kids how to find meaning in the togetherness of family. You want a strong nation, build strong families, and it starts with each one of you guys out there. Sarah, good to see you here. Sarah says, my grandparents had a nice chess checkers table also, but I'm not very good at chess either. Sarah, I should play you sometime. You may be the first person I've beaten chess in a long time. But thank you guys for being here. King Cassius, thank you for being here. Barbara, all you listeners, we have around 400 people viewing the episode on X, and others viewing it on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, and in my Mindset Masterclass. These are sponsored every week by Mindset Masterclass. School.com/mindset, SKOOL.com/mindset. come on over, giving away free memberships for a lifetime. Take a deeper dive into such conversations. Jeff, all my best to you and your family. Keep up the great work. We need about 1,000 more people doing what you're doing. So thank you for being here today. And guys, thank y'all for joining us. We will catch you next time. Bye bye now.
Appreciate it.